to your favorite part this week in trading history. What do you got for us this week, Patrick?
All right, well, this week in trading history, well, I want to take our listeners way back to the 1700s, and we're gonna talk about this trader, this Munihisha. Sorry, I'm gonna pronounce it properly here after a couple of beers. Munihisha Homa. He's one of the first and one of the most legendary hedge fund managers of his time out in Japan. But
Did you just call him a hedge fund manager in the 1700s?
yes, I'm gonna listen, buddy.
Okay,
I call him this. All right,
okay,
listen,
okay,
listen. I'm calling him this. Okay,
Okay,
so
fair enough. I should be quiet.
let's paint the landscape for this. Okay, so for context, we have when we go back to the early 1600s, circle back to the Dutch East India Company, right? Which was we had featured on the show before in this segment, which established in the 1600s. I think the Portuguese were there first, but they established a big trading post in Japan. And it became Japan became one of the part of this global network of trade of spices and other goods that were all going around internationally, and so it was influential in making local Japanese merchants incredibly prosperous and laying the foundation from which the Japanese would eventually establish the Dojima Rice Exchange. I mean, the exact date, I think 1697 was, I think, the year that they say was the actual creation of the exchange in the city of Osaka. But the whole exchange was based on rice as the primary currency of trade, as back then in Japan most labor and soldiers were actually paid in rice. And so it was this exchange where the emergence and the concepts behind trading of futures was actually established, including it was the forerunner of our modern banking system. So a lot of this actually originates back to here, and so we're talking futures and banking all being established back here, and so the rice receipts that these merchants and rice brokers traded were actually used as a medium of exchange and making it one of the first actively traded currencies in the world.
Nice, the rice.
Right. The rice, rice-backed currency, right? And
Yeah.
so this is where I want to circle back to Munihisha Homa, who was born in 1724. And so he established himself as one of the legendary traders of his time. He had made the equivalent of about $10 billion of today's money.
Come on.
Yeah.
Seriously?
The equivalent of about $10 billion today. So he was like this big, huge trader back then on this exchange. So, but what's amazing is some of the origins of what came from him. So he began recording price movements in the markets on paper made out of rice plants, and he recorded the open, high, low, and close each day. And he started recognizing patterns, so he started giving them names, which led to the development of the candlestick charting we use today.
Wow.
And that's my preferred way of looking at charts. So whenever we're looking at charts, I'm always using candlesticks. But when we talk about the naming of patterns in candlestick charting, so you hear the names such as the dumpling top or the frying pan bottom or the evening star or the doji candle, all of these things were actually origins to the names that he was giving them back when he was developing these patterns.
I didn't even know. Could you repeat those again? Because I've never even heard of half of them.
Dumpling tops, frying pan bottoms, evening stars. There's morning stars. There's also there's all sorts of these really fun patterns that are in there, and they all have these kind of names because they were all made back in the 1700s.
Yeah.
Right. What's interesting is that he also developed the use of tracking weather patterns, following market volumes to influence his trading. All of this stuff was thing, and he developed an edge in trading against all of these other rice merchants. And that's a great story anyway. But now I want to go back because not only was he one of the forefront fathers of technical analysis in the way that he does this, but it was in 1755 that he wrote a book called The Fountain of Gold, The Three-Monkey Record of Money. Which was actually focused on the psychological behavior of market participants and how to make use of it. So he actually has also contributed to behavioral finance and the idea of understanding the psychology behind trading.
Wow.
And he actually wrote a book on it. And so what's interesting is he described bull and bear markets as yin and yang. And so he describes the rotation of yang, which is a bull market, into the yin, which was a bear market, and claims that within each type of market there is an instance of another. So everything from bull and bear markets to psychology of trading to candlestick and technical analysis was all coming from him.
That's unbelievable. Who would have
Right?
thought?
All right.
Why
and
is
so
he-
it's-
Why
Sorry?
was he a hedge fund manager, though? Why do you consider him a hedge fund manager?
I don't know. I just read something that said that. I don't know.
Oh.
I have no other way of saying that.
Well,
but
you
I
know
mean,
what-
look, there was. I mean, I'm sure he was going long and short the different rice exchange stuff. Like, I mean, but anyway,
He's probably
That's the
doing the
story.
rice arb. The rice arb. You know, when you told me he wrote a book about the three monkeys, all I could think about was Brad Pitt in the 12 Monkey movie. Anyways, that's a great story, Patrick. We always
Yeah.
count on you to tell us about, 16th century hedge fund managers. Terrific. Let's move on to the
All right.
WTF
All
clip of the
right.
week.